Welcome back to another episode of the Hattie podcast, and I have a very special guest, someone who I love dearly, who inspires me greatly, Miss Sharelle Grant.
Thanks, Hattie. I'm so excited to be here sitting with you. It's, we've obviously done a podcast together in the past. It feels like a full circle moment for me.
I was actually on Sharelle's first ever podcast with Danny Antonello's for Level Up. This was how long ago?
Oh, it would have to be 7 years, I reckon, or 6 years, at least that long ago, which is crazy how fast time goes.
We were sitting in your living room.
Yeah.
With an iPhone camera.
Yeah.
Recording the first ever podcast. Now, if you do not know Sharelle Grant, you will know her after this podcast. We're going to get to know her very deeply today. And she's got the Women's Health Movement, which is her coaching business, helps women all over the world. And she also has the Level Up podcast. Anything else that I'm missing there, Sharelle? You are an athlete as well. She is by nature a WBFF pro.
Yeah.
But I think she's hung up those boots.
Yeah, well, I've definitely hung the heels up. No, I think that sums it up. I mean, I've recently started a YouTube channel as well. But yeah, I think you summed up sort of the branding side of things there.
You've come a long way since I've known you. And you do such a great job actually sharing so much of your journey. And my first question to you is, how would you describe your relationship with yourself now in this present moment?
It's such a great question. It's an interesting question. I guess the first word that honestly comes to mind for me is like steady. That's like the first word that comes to mind for me. And I'm not a steady person, which is ironic when you say those two things. But I really enjoy the relationship I have with myself. I mean, if you had asked me that maybe like 10 years ago in my 20s or in my early 20s, I probably would have had a very different answer. But I guess a lot of the work that I've done over the years, and I feel like business is like the greatest form of personal development ever. It forces you to grow up real quick, yes, and exposes every element. But, in my early 30s now, like I really, really enjoy my relationship with myself. And of course I have sharp parts of me and I have, definitely components that I don't love. But for the majority of the time, like I do enjoy spending time in my own company and keeping to myself. And, I spend a lot of time in my thoughts. I'm sure you're the same, but like there's not a moment I'm not thinking about something. So yeah, I'll describe it steady, consistent, and for the majority of the time, like enjoyable.
You said if I'd asked you that question 10 years ago, there would be a very different answer. I'm curious if you can pinpoint like what have been some of the transformations that you've noticed internally that have helped shape the steadiness that you experience now?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, probably one of the biggest like pivotal moments for me, and one person in particular that's really just like reshaped my internal world is Michelle, who I'm sure you've spoken about before and you're deeply connected with as well. But I had her on my podcast as Danny had invited her on, and I knew nothing about Michelle Beatty at the time. Danny had just said, like, she's this neuropsych, she's incredible, she's going to have you on. I was like, great. And I just had, that podcast just changed so much for me because it was the first time I was just genuinely exposed to thinking about my thoughts and like thinking about thinking, right? Which we just don't do. We just do. We're so subconscious in our world and we just move on to the next thing. But being exposed to Michelle, her work, neuroscience, really like thinking about my thoughts before responding and thinking about why I do what I do. Like that was really the first time where I was like, oh, okay, like I have choice over what I think. I can control these parts.
I am not my thoughts.
I am not my thoughts. And I understand why I do what I do and why I've got these traits that maybe I don't love, but I know why they're there and how they serve me. So that really shaped a lot of me. And then I also just think as well, like maturity, like dare I say, like in your 20s, you just want to people please and you want to care for everyone. And I was always so worried about what everyone thought of me. And I just feel like I outgrew it. And I know not everyone outgrows it. There's always work that takes to outgrow something. But I just think maturity and just a lot of the, I want to say personal work that I've done on really reshaping my thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, something I often thank Michelle for is almost like helping me minimize the judgment of, oh my God, I'm crazy. Helping me understand, as you said, like why I have these thoughts or why I have behaved the way I have, because it's so easy to judge ourselves rather than stay curious. And that's probably the one of the best skills or tools that she's taught me is how can we stay curious about the parts of us that are really sharp and that we're frustrated by or that feel uncomfortable? And can we learn to sit in the discomfort and actually not do anything with it? Like actually just to lean in and say, I'm really curious about this part that feels uncomfortable. Like, can I sit here? Can I learn about it? Can I lean in? Is there a question that I need to ask it? I'm curious why you're here. Because I think that's the part that most people, we often think like growth and self-development is such a beautiful way of thinking. It's like, I want to be the better version of myself. But when we think about being the better version of ourselves, it's hard. Like it requires us to be more disciplined or more devoted or look after ourselves even more, like hold that high standard or a standard that we set for ourselves. And I'm curious to ask you, like, what are the standards that you set for yourself now and how have they changed from when you were maybe even just starting out in this industry?
Yeah, great question. I mean, often when I hear the word standards, and I think a lot of people, when they say standards, it's quite firm and sharp and rigid. But to me, like the standards I hold of myself, they've changed a lot. They're a lot more flexible now than probably what they were in the past, where they were a lot more rigid. They felt like rules. They weren't standards. Like standards to me, they come from a place of protecting like what I want to be, who I want to be, what I want to do for the outcome of being my best self rather than a form of punishment. Whereas I feel like in the past, like if I didn't hit the standard, it was not good enough. You know, it was like a bit, it was like
that standard or expectation though?
Oh, it's a good expectation, standard. The expectation, I want to say, for me feels like a minimum. Like there's an expectation. It's like you just do this thing, right? Whereas with the standard, it feels like higher. It feels like when I have a standard, it's for a purpose. It's for a vision. It's for something greater than me usually or for my best self. So for me, like my standards, I probably got them confused with in the past of like rules or expectations or I mislabeled them. Whereas now when I think of like the standards I have for myself, they're probably less about myself. You know, they're less about my own personal goals, if that makes sense. It's more about the work I do, how I contribute to others, like the standard and almost like the responsibility I have to show up in a way that doesn't just serve me and my interests, of course, filling up your own cup, but also being the best for other people as well. So long way of saying I'm definitely a lot more flexible in the way that I have standards because they're not just about me anymore and they probably don't come from like a negative place. Whereas in the past it was all about, you know, maybe external validation, reaching particular goals. A lot of my goals in my 20s, which served me very well for that season, were just about me. You know, it was just my own selfish pursuit, which I think was important for me. There's nothing wrong with having like selfish and self-centered goals. I think that's important. Whereas now a lot of what I'm driven by is not necessarily about my own personal goals. It's more about collectively moving towards something with other people. So the standards are often fueled by something different than what they probably were like 10 years ago.
You're obviously a leader with your team and you work with your partner. What do you feel makes a great leader?
Oh, it's such a good question. I mean, do you know what? My definition of a leader has changed so much over the years. I think a lot of people in society, like they label a leader as someone that's like firm and direct and disciplined and like it's a school principal, it's a hospital CEO, it's the man in the
person at the front.
Yeah, it's the person in the tailored suit. It's that person. Whereas for me now, like there's a really good book called Leaders Eat Last. Leaders Eat Last. I remember reading that and I was like, Simon Sinek is just his thoughts on leadership. I'm like, wow, it's so opposite to what the world tells you. Yeah. And for me, I know for myself, like something I used to do a lot is, and I think it's a young part of me and a lot of us have it, but like people that have authority used to hold a lot of weight over me, right? And obviously that comes from deeper stuff, but like even school and, you know, other things as well where it's like if someone above you would say not good enough or like you haven't done a good job, right, you would almost like crumble away and pull back. And that in my eyes is like not a leader. Like that's not what leadership is. Leadership is like leading from the front. You go first, you take the risks, you do the hard work so other people can follow, right? And for me, like leadership now is really about allowing other people to step up and rise up because there's never ever one person that can do it all. And I think a lot of people want positions of power for their own ego rather
than control. I think a lot of it comes to control.
100%. And even when I look at like some of our own coaches, like some of the coaches with the greatest influence are the quietest, most humble coaches. They don't speak a lot. They listen first, and they inspire clients through their actions rather than what they say or what they demand or what they direct. So for me, I'm naturally quite a direct and forward person, which I think is something I've learned to sort of taper down and be like, speak last. Like I always ask myself, wait, like why are you speaking? You know, like why are you speaking right now? And letting other people like take leadership, because at the end of the day, leadership's like heavy responsibility. You want leaders with you as well, not just doing it on your own. So yeah, I think in the past I used to think a leader was someone that just had this, knew it all, they had high level of expertise, like they were the best, but that's actually not always the case. And yeah, I've definitely just learnt that of like sometimes the best leaders are the ones that you would actually never expect.
Yeah, I love Simon Sinek, and I've read the book Leaders Eat Last, and I often say leaders go first, which is like, I think there's a beautiful thing about leadership, especially when it is leading a team, and it's not to control, it is to, how do I give you a space to become better? Like when we look at teams, and if we want to have a great coaching team, which we both do, it's how can I practice everything in my actions, but also help you see where you can be better, and not to beat you with what needs to be done better, but to say, hey, like these are the things that we can look at to practice forward. Working with your partner. We both work with our partners. We both have the same kind of businesses. What have you noticed? What have you learnt from Luke? I only just met Luke last night, and he is so lovely, and watching you two dance together is probably the best way of putting it. You know, I love observing people. I'm really curious around relationships. So I would love to know, what have you noticed about your relationship in strengths and maybe even in practices that have held you together through working as a team, building this business?
Yeah, so we're still like, I would classify us early days in business. Like we're sort of only year 4 or coming up to year 5 at the end of this year, which is still quite young. I feel like it's taken us a long time to really learn how to work together and how to separate, you know, your relationship from your professional life. And prior to going into business together, like Luke used to be a PE teacher, and he was like head of wellbeing and very high up in sort of the school space, and that was his forte. And I was obviously a nurse and a midwife. So we actually didn't spend a whole lot of time together because I was shift working, and anytime he had holidays, I definitely didn't, and I'll do night shift. And so it was almost like with normal life, we would come home at the end of the day and that might be it if I was not on night shift or a PM. So now though, working in business, like we are like attached to the hip. Like we spend so much time together. It's ridiculous. We work from home. We obviously work a lot together. We travel together, like all those pieces. So we spend a lot of time together now. And I remember when I said to Mum, I called her up because it was through COVID, Luke was getting burnt out, and I'd obviously started the businesses. I was drowning. I was like, I need some help. Hey, why don't you just quit your job and come work with? I think it could be a good idea. You know
what? We can make this work.
Yeah, well, let's give it a go and see what happens.
What's the worst that's going to happen? We break up.
That's
no
right. No biggie. Well, my mum said to me, the first thing she said to me, she's like, Sharelle, if it causes strain and tension, it's not worth it. All right. And I was like, what do you mean? I was just, you know, you're sort of a little bit ignorant. And I was like, we'll give it a go. I know what she means now, because there's definitely an amount of work that has to go into making sure that your relationship stays healthy and stays strong in doing that while you transition into business. But we've learnt over the years how important it is to have our own spaces and how important it is to not bring work home, I guess, and make sure that we can protect each other in the parts of the business that we need. Like I don't need to know everything that he's doing, what's going on the inside. I don't need to know everything the same way he doesn't need to know everything. So almost like separating what I need to know in the business to protect the outside space, I feel like is really important. But the good thing about, I guess, our dynamic is we're so opposite. Right. And you probably see this is he is like a spreadsheet man, data. Like if something's out of line, it's uncomfortable for him. Like he's a manager, right? He's an operator. Yeah. Whereas I'm a bit more like, I'll go with the flow. I'm a lot more flexible. I'm I'm not as rigid. I'm very much off vibes. I just hide people I liked, and whereas he's a process man. So because we function so differently, it's both a good thing and a bad thing, right? We do good work together, but there's usually a lot of tension in the room when we're coming up with decisions, right? Because it's like, no, I don't, like that's not the right, and we have those little disagreements. But I think we've just learnt little like tactics and ways and hacks of like how to keep the relationship there. Also respect boundaries, not always, but respect boundaries of maybe when things need to be left, when Luke doesn't want to know about work at 10 p.m. and when I don't need to know about problems. But it's always an ongoing process. We have not figured it out. We've had lots of, definitely more arguments in the last 5 years than the 5 years before that. But I feel like it's made us stronger for sure because you just see so much more of each other, right? And you learn so much more about each other. And I know you'd be the same. Like I just understand him so much because you work so closely with that person.
What's been something is there any skills or anything that you feel like you've learnt from Luke since working from him? Have you noticed anything?
Oh, 100%. I mean, like I said, we're both so different that our skill sets are so complementary in business, right? Because in business, you can't just have a creative. You can't just have an operator.
If you're both creative, nothing would get done.
Nothing would get done, or we would spend all this time working on the wrong thing, or I would have like 15 different businesses. That's what would happen. So Luke is, dare I say, a lot more disciplined than me. He's a lot more sharper. His standards are probably a lot higher than me in like quality and output and precision and all of those pieces. He's a numbers man. He doesn't make decisions off feelings at all, whereas I'm a bit more innovative, I want to say, which I think is important because data is an outcome of what's already happened. And sometimes I'm like, I feel that there hasn't happened yet. So I've definitely taken a lot more of that way of thinking into what I do, and I'm probably a lot more steadier and slower and thoughtful in my decision making. And I think he's taken the opposite from me as well. As like sometimes we can't wait, sometimes we can't have everything perfect, or sometimes we have to make a few mistakes, or sometimes you just have to throw people in the deep end and just let them have a go.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas his teaching background, he's like everything, like you're just onboarding processes, teaching, training, upskilling people to make sure people feel prepared and ready for what they're about to do, which is really important. But I'm also like, sometimes in small business, you don't have that. Right. And you sink or swim at times. So I've learned a lot more of like the processing side of things and slowing my decision making down. And obviously that's in business, but it's in everything, to be honest. It bleeds into every other area. And yeah, I think he's taken a bit more of the other side too.
The trajectory of the business, do you feel like that's changed since it started? Like, or has the mission pretty much stayed the same?
I think the mission's always stayed the same. Like I've always felt really strongly about what we do, the work we do, who we do it for, and I guess the impact we want to have in the industry and how I want it to be different. And you'd be the same. I've had lots of coaching in the past myself as a client, so I really understand. I was always that client that was like, I wonder why they do that. Or like, why don't they do this? Or how about this? And the areas that I always felt like were missing from coaching, I understand why they are for a lot of people because they're so difficult to build and to operate and to deliver. So I feel like that's the same, but I think our clarity has probably improved over the years of knowing more about what we don't want. And I think that's valuable. Like
that's almost sometimes better.
Yeah, it's rule of elimination.
Cleans out the trash kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Niche down.
Yeah, just like understanding it's like, oh, I thought I wanted that and I don't. And I think a lot of people do this even with goals, right? They're like, I think I want this goal. I think I want this outcome. I think I want to achieve this. And then when it comes into actually doing it, it's like, do I? Do I actually want to live that? Do I actually want to manage that? Like, this is the cost of getting that. Is that really what I want? And there's no right or wrong, but, for us, it's also about like, why do we do what we do? We love having high standards. We love having quality work. And because of that, there's these other things that come from that. That's okay. I would rather those problems than other ones, So it's always a choice, I find. And I always have to remind Luke, I'm like, everything is a choice. Everything we want is a decision. So if we don't want this, we make a different choice and a decision. And that's just the way I feel about most things. Everything's always a decision in my eyes.
What do people not see about building a successful business?
The pain, how hard it is. I think a lot of people say it, but I just it's incredibly difficult. I think the emotional toll that it has on people is heavy. And it's why, to be honest, you have to do so much work, because if you didn't, you absorb so much, and you're probably, I would be, without the work, very impulsive. I'd try and fix everything. I'm a fixer. You give me a problem, I'll fix it right now. I can't sit on a broken problem. I have to fix it. And it's not always possible. I hate leaving things, but you have to. There's 50 things burning and you just got to put out the bushfire and leave everything else. That's the way it feels all of the time. The other thing I've learned is that as things grow and get bigger, the problems just get bigger. So you think, oh, when I fix this, this will be better. When this happens, I won't have this. And it's just not the case. By fixing one problem, you unlock two more. Yeah. And a lot of people don't recognize that. And I don't think you can until you're in it, to be honest. But that would be my sense, is just like the weight that comes with it is like, yes, you get the wins, but you also carry all the losses.
I was listening to this podcast the other day. It was actually with Jay Shetty and Layla Hormozi, and I'm such a fan of her.
Yeah, I love her.
I think she does such an amazing job of like humanizing someone's experience. Yeah. And so that's why Alex often says like she's the one that deals with the people because she's just so good at it. And I was listening to her talk about someone that she worked with who ended up like shutting their business down because they were just so emotional. Yeah. And in that moment I was like, is that me? Because obviously it's like there is those positives. Like there's so many positive things that happen within, especially a coaching business, when you are hearing and seeing and witnessing people's transformation. And I'm not just talking about physical, I'm talking about how they start showing up for themselves. You really feel those. But on the flip side, you also feel the negatives and the negative bias of like someone not happy or complaining or someone cancelling. It's like, it's sometimes I'm like, oh my God, like when am I going to get a break? And the truth is like, you don't. Like same thing with your growing your body. It's like you don't get a break. You just learn how to do things better. You just get better. And I feel like business is such a mirror to our self-development. And I was just listening to that podcast and I was like, oh my God, like this is just holding a mirror to the parts that I still need to improve in the business, like for myself to improve the business.
Yeah, 100%. I used to probably like protect as well, like a lot of the realities for like the team and other people, because obviously you want to keep steadiness and like that's just not often what business is. It's always a little bit wobbly. But Luke and I would be like, yeah, everyone has their weekends off. Obviously the team does, but like we don't often.
No,
and it's like,
24/7.
Yeah. And like, I think, I always had this, I guess, contrast of what's the saying? It's like, do what I say, not what I do. I always felt like that. I'm like, we're telling other people to rest and slow down and take breaks and not take things personally, but like we can't at this stage. So, and we used to probably protect vocalizing when things weren't going well, when there was really big problems that we had to work overtime on. If we had issues with the app and we just had to dig in and split focus or shift things or if I had to jump on a call and deal with someone that was very unhappy because of certain things that someone else had done, etc. Like we probably used to filter and protect a lot, whereas now it's sort of like, no, this is the reality. And I think if you want everyone to rise together, people have to understand like the real reality too. And I think obviously, like I said, not everyone wants that. Not everyone should want that, because it's like sometimes you got to do 65-hour work weeks for 5 weeks. And that's just also the cost of, getting the wins, but also there is the big hole that you've got to go in for 3 to 5 years at least to get out the other side. And I think on social media, you just see so much BS, right? You just see laptop lifestyle, especially in the fitness industry. Like it's like a 100K month is like the minimum. Anything below that's just, and it's so easy to get there. Like everyone just, throws these things around, and it's like, no, if you see anyone that is doing those things at the top, you are seeing the tip of the iceberg. And of course we don't owe anyone the piece of showing up and talking about how hard things are all of the time, but there is so much more underneath, just like anything. Someone with an elite body, there is so much underneath you never ever get to see because they're out there working on it. They're not out there talking about the work that they're doing in that sense.
I was just laughing because, when I see people like heading to Bali and working on their laptop, I'm like, how come I'm not living that life?
Yeah.
Like it, and it's because I run multiple businesses and I'm in the business and on the business, and it's the same. It's like it's 24/7 from like I try and give myself the first kind of 30 minutes that I don't go on my phone and I walk and coffee. But sometimes when there's an enormous amount of work to do and there's an enormous amount of messages coming in, it's like sometimes I got to like break my own boundaries. But it's an interesting thing because if you don't have any boundaries, then you start resenting the work. I know that Saturdays I try and protect, not always, but if I don't for a long period of time, this joy that I normally feel, it starts to get, and then I feel bad that I'm not feeling joy.
Yeah.
But it is a lot of work. And if you are really caring about the work that you do, then it's not this really easy lifestyle. It's actually really hard.
Yeah. I understand why people don't do it. Like there's been multiple times where I'm like, I get it. I get it. This is shit. You know, but that's just always the cost too, is you sort of got to understand. But the other piece that you were sort of just reflecting on that I feel like a lot of people don't understand is sometimes the amount of like hate and disagreement or emotions that just get thrown at your way, whether it's by email, comments, DMs, team members, unhappy customers, whatever it might be, like the amount that you almost have to absorb. Filter, and then that took me a long time to do, and I can only imagine for you as well, like over the years. But you've almost got to learn what to ignore, what to shut off, and have a really good filter about like what matters. Otherwise, you just end up absorbing everything and feeling everything, and that makes everything 10 times harder. Whereas now I've probably learned to like cut things off and care less, which is so hard to do, to just care less. But I feel like that is something that a lot of people don't see.
And I feel like something I think that you do so well, Sharelle, and I love it because it enrolls me to do it, to show up better than what I am, is you really put yourself out there. And what is hard when people do want to put themselves out there is they get met with those negative comments and those negative people and so much emotion. And as you said, if you haven't done the work, and especially in the beginning when you're just not used to it, and especially when you're growing, like the thing is when something goes viral, it goes to anyone and everyone. So you're met with anyone and everyone who feel it's their rite of passage to tell you what they think about you. And they don't even know you, yet they seem to be able to say a whole lot of things about you. Or I always look at Sheridan Sky, love you so much, wifey, her like social media, and she gets like so much spice. And good thing she's very spicy and knows how to handle herself. But sometimes I just think, oh my goodness, like this is actually what we have to deal with in the world. But as long as you know your mission and you know what you stand for, then over time, like it can peel away the people that it's not for. But that's really hard on social media. Social media is not easy. It can be so amazing and powerful and positive, but it also has the flip side of the negative comments. And it is that you have to learn how to filter out what is not necessary to respond to or to get rid of or to, share out, and what is actually worth spending your time responding to or even like absorbing and acknowledging. Because even though you might get a day with negative comments, I'm sure you get beautiful comments and gratitude and thank yous and all those things. But it's so easy to like grab onto the negative part, especially when you're tired and you feel like you're doing so much. And this is my experience anyway. It's like I'm trying to do the best that I can. And when it's met with something that's like just so left of field, you're just like, what is going on here?
Yeah, and it's that negative bias in our brain, right? It doesn't matter if it's on social media or in your friendship group or whatever it might be. We're always going to notice the negative. And I think it's such a trained thought to be like, notice the positive instead. It has to be almost conscious that you do it.
I want to circle back. I went off on a little bit of tangent. I thought, I'm going to dive a bit deeper into business, but I actually want to circle back to you and Luke. And my question to you, Sharelle, is you work together, you spend a lot of time together, you said you're attached to the hip. How do you still I've lost the word. How do you still create intimacy between each other and separate the work that you do? Like, how do you keep that alive, the playfulness, intimate moments?
Yeah, look, it's always a work in progress, and it sort of shifts with the seasons as well. Is like some seasons it's really hard, isn't it? Sort of like, I'm just so exhausted. There's no room for creativity and joy in your brain sometimes when you're going through really tough seasons. But I think for us, we've really learnt like the importance of boundaries in our work and reading each other when we need to like respect different boundaries, right? So, for example, a lot of people in this day and age struggle with like doom scrolling on social media or Netflix or like, you know, spending too much time. Whereas that's actually for us like how we need to shift our focus and be like, okay, I've sent you 10 reels today. We're going to watch them together and sit down and laugh, you know, and actually like have those pockets where we're still, dare I say, normal, like where we're still like in a relationship. The other thing we do is like we have a date night like every week. We try to make sure that we clock off at the same time and we sort of have breaks together. I'll pull him up when he's not. I'll be like, what are you doing? You know, you can sort of read each other. And I think for us, it's just about like genuinely switching off because we have no issues being intimate and making sure that we've got time for relationship stuff when we're not fixated on work. Like I'm actually really good at compartmentalizing and forgetting. Like Luke will be like, we've got this fire. And he's like, how are you drawing a photo on your iPad? Like he'll be like, I'm really good at that. I think it's my nursing background. It's like I used to watch the hospital doors shut and be like, everything's in there. I can't bring it home with me. Whereas he, as a teacher, that never learnt that skill because he was like always bringing things home, right? Whereas I'm so good at that it's not even a second. Like I've forgotten about problems. I've moved on to like something else. So I'm actually very good at that. I try to instill that a lot more on him. But when we can both do that, when we can both like separate work from play and business from fun and make time to look after our relationship, because we've definitely had conversations where it's like, hey, we're getting a bit like professional here. Do you know what I mean? Where it's like,
are you friend zoning me?
Are you my boss? That's just sort of like, I feel like we work together.
Would you like to sleep with your secretary?
Yeah, I feel like this is illegal. We've definitely had seasons with that though, right? And that served a place and a purpose. And like I said, I don't think either of us actually wanted to have that part of our relationship even active when we were in so much fight or flight. But long term, you have to be like, okay, well, how do we protect the relationship part of us so that I don't always see you through the lens of work? So yeah, lots of little things. It's always a work in progress in being able to do it. But one thing I committed to, was it the start of last year, when I recognized that we were like working all the time. There was no play, there was no intimacy, there was no time for a relationship. It was just work. We had a conversation. I was like, we need to learn to live in the process and enjoy the process while we're living it. Like I think we thought for the first few years we'd just work really hard and then we'd be able to pull back. Lol. Whereas now we're coming into 5 years and all that stuff's BS, guys, by the way. It's like, you know, strap in for like 7 years. But I said to Luke, I said, we need to spend a bit more of our profit and enjoy our life and also be able to travel and have days off and just like enjoy what we've built so far while we're still building it. And that almost permission for us to like get away from the desk and not always try to be productive and not always try to be on has allowed us to probably like travel and explore and have that play back in our relationship as well as do the work that's important to us.
How important do you think it is to choose the right partner?
The most important decision of your life. Like where you live and who you spend your time with is like the most important thing ever. Like I love all my friends. I do have a few where I'm like, why are you with that person? You know, where how can you, that's why they're with them. But for me, to be honest, bad boys make bad boyfriends. That was always my motto growing up, is like bad boys are fun when you're young, but like I was always like, you need a man that's, if I'm going to have children with you, like how are you going to be a father? And yeah, I'm glad I made the right decision, to be honest, but it's so important. Not enough people think about that. They get too swept away in maybe the emotion side of things. And I think there has to be a little bit of logic behind who you choose to spend the rest of your life with.
How did you and Luke meet?
We met on Tinder. He won't admit this, but he won't admit this. We went to uni together, and it was when Tinder was coming out. But so we'd known each other through uni. I'd seen him in the library a couple of times studying. And
hey, boy.
Yeah, hey. And I had actually just broken up with a partner, long-term partner, when I was at uni, and I'd sort of known of Luke. I'd met him a little bit. We met one night out. He wrote his number on the card. That's how old I am. Getting back then, we just, wrote his number down, gave me his number. And then I was on Tinder. I saw him on Tinder. I swiped on Tinder. And then that was sort of it since uni. So, yeah, that was probably, I was 19 when we met.
So 13 years?
Well, I'm 32 now, so I know what the math is. Longer.
13?
Yeah, 13. Long time, isn't it?
Babies?
I think we will, yes. Yeah, we've always wanted a family. When I became a midwife, to be fully transparent, contraception like never before. I was like, whoa, I was 22 when I became a midwife, so I was very young. And I was like, this is really hard. This is not what people tell you on the outside. You think that's hard. Wait till you breastfeed. Like I was like, that is not what I want right now. You know, becoming a midwife was a really strong form of contraception for me. But yeah, like and then when we went into business, it was a conscious choice of like, we just need to work. If I'm going to go into that season of life, I want to be comfortable. I don't want to be strained. I want to set myself up really well. But yeah, we will in the future.
I think, you know, what I think about often is just how things have changed around around careers for women and marriage and all those things. And I remember, so I got married this year to Coben. He turns 30 next month. I'm 37.
Love it.
And I said to my mum, I can't believe I got married at 37. Like in my imagination as a 20-year-old, it was like you were going to have a family.
All your kids by then.
All by 30.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm 37 and people obviously ask me all the time if I want kids. And it's interesting because I sometimes think, I look at Coben and I'm like, I love this man so much. I'm like, imagine the little kids we would have. They're just so cute. But then I'm like, that is so much work. And it's just not something that I even could think about having right now. But I'm 37.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think, maybe when I'm 40. And it's like, but then you're 40. And I think, but then you're 40 thought, is that just because it's so against what we've grown up to think where we think we should be, that expectation versus, actually what's actually happening in the world.
Yeah.
And I also love that I have freedom and from a selfish point of view, I love that I have Coben all to myself with Cookie, but mostly to myself. And I don't know what that would be like, you know, differently. I'm not saying it could be worse, it could be better, it could be amazing, but it also is going to be harder because kids are both amazing and they're incredibly challenging.
Yeah, 100%. And I do think that there is a lot of parents that don't speak up about the realities out of fear of what people would say. And it's such a grey area because there's a lot of people that struggle. So a lot of people don't want to talk about it because they don't want to make other people feel bad and seem ungrateful. And there's just all this like conflicting stuff. But I think growing up, very similar, like it wasn't really ever a choice. You sort of, that's what you did.
Yeah.
You know, for me, it was like you went to uni, you bought a house, you got married, you did the thing. And
ticked off the boxes.
Ticked off the boxes. And we've done nothing conventional, to be honest. Nothing. Like we left our careers that we spent, you know, a lot of time and energy and money building up to do, you know, what we're doing, online business, which is so foreign. And I just think that when you break the mold of what you should be doing and really actually ask yourself, do I want this? And I've definitely had those conversations. I spoke to a lot of friends about like, how did you know you wanted kids? Like what was the thing that told you that you wanted kids? Like tell me what it's really like. Because a lot of my friends, and this is what most people do, they talk about how hard it is. And so naturally in my brain, I'm like, why does everyone do it if it's so hard? You know, like you don't hear many people talk about the positives. And I think it's because of the opposite. Like I said, a lot of people don't want to talk about the positives when they know there's so many people that struggle. But it's such a personal choice. And I love that women have the choice because I think that there is people that like shouldn't be parents. It's not everyone has to do it. You know, it's not, there's so many other joys in life that you can make out of life. But yeah, I remember talking to a few friends and I was like, how did you know it's what you wanted? Like, and some friends are like, I didn't, you know, I just thought I'd probably regret not. And this is why I want to do it. I've also had friends being like, you know, like I love it, but also I'm not quite sure like whether it was the right decision. So I've heard both. And I just think we have to make the right choice for us based on what we need. And yeah, the other, like Luke has wanted to be a father forever. He's always wanted to be a dad. And, you know, I've always wanted kids. I think for me, like you said, it's the timing piece for me that's really hard because obviously we have a biological clock, which, and I think the average age of a woman now starting a family is like 31, 32. It's a lot older than what it used to be.
I saw a statistic around 40.
Really? Yeah,
yeah, there's more women these days having kids at 40 than in their 20s.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me because it's so hard, and I just I see a lot of people that have kids when they're younger, and they wouldn't have it any other way, but they go into so much like financial strain and all these other things that are just so difficult. And you look at daycare and all the other stuff, and it's sort of like I just think like you need to do what you want on your terms. It's your life, and a lot of people are going to give you their opinion on what you should do. But at the end of the day, I feel like women just need to go with what they genuinely want and what they think is best.
Yeah, I almost think it's like, can we break the mold of what we think we have to do and do what we actually actually want to do.
100%. You know, and I've always considered, I'm like, oh, would I freeze my eggs? Is that something like I feel like we don't speak about those things enough?
I'm going to.
Yeah, I honestly think it should be something we speak about more because it shouldn't be until we're in our 30s that we have that discussion. It should be like, well, maybe when we're younger. You know, I just feel like if it was more accessible, more spoken about, more normalized rather than like something you only do if you're going to have issues. I feel like there's so much evolution that needs to happen and catch up with like modern time of what the reality is and what women actually want and need, especially with careers, business, other things that just take years and decades to actually establish.
But I often think I often think that you named it, like today when I asked you your relationship with yourself, you said it's steady. If I'd asked you 10 years ago, it would have been a different story. Having kids so young, we haven't necessarily got the tools and skills yet, but it's just because of, you know, what we've been told or even just, you know, evolution of being more fertile as we're younger.
Yes.
But actually as we're older, we have so many more skill sets. We know ourselves better. We know how to self-regulate. We've got more wisdom. We might have, you know, better stability financially. Like I feel like there's all these other pros over here.
Yeah.
But yet we've been told that things should be like this when we're younger. Because I see some, you know, young kids or people in their 20s having kids and they're all over the shop. They're not regulated. How the kid's going to be regulated? But, you know, it's just a lesson. And
100%. I had that conversation with a good friend who she had her first kid at like 20 or 21 from home. Very common in the country. It's like most people start families when they're younger. A lot of my friends did. And then she's just had her last kid last year, I think. So she's got 3 and she's the same age as me now. And I was asking her about like what was the difference, and she was just like, when I had my first, like I was obviously so young, and she's like, I struggled so much, I had no idea what I was doing. But I like what you said, she's like, I just struggled like mentally because I was so young, like I didn't really know what I wanted in life, and whereas now, like as she was saying, like I'm a better parent, I can understand, I can actually ration with my own thoughts. So it was interesting to hear the difference because like you said, no one thinks about those things. It's like, oh, I better start young, better start early. And it's just the conditioning of society, to be honest, when it's like, well, maybe we're just not just here to reproduce. Like maybe we've got other missions in life as well.
I'm going to circle back to partnership after we're just talking about kids. And I guess that's an important part of parenting too. But from a partnership point of view, what do you think is important in terms of support, that you support your partner and that you receive from your partner?
As in with Luke? I think honesty is really important for me. Like in any relationship, you might not always get the answer you want or you get the answer you need, I find. And Luke's one of the only people in my life I know is going to tell me exactly like what the reality is and give me the honest truth. So I feel like honesty is really important to me, and getting that from him, like no fluff. I just want the actual thing of like, is this right? Is this wrong? What do you think about it? And I feel like he's always helped me feel steady in that. Of a lot of people just tell you what you want to hear, for example, or like people want to keep you happy or just say you're amazing or whatever it might be. But I feel like the honesty side of things in any relationship, but especially with your partner, is really important because without it, nothing really works.
Do you feel like you communicate well?
Together at times. I mean, like there's always times in any dynamic where it's like, that wasn't my best self. But I do think so. I think over the years we've really learnt a lot about each other's natural styles, parts, communication, and what we need. And even if things do get escalated, like he knows exactly what I need in that moment and the space I need. So I think over the years, you just learn about what each other really needs, and it always comes back down to boundaries for me. Is when you spend so much time with someone, of course, there's going to be areas where you trigger each other at times. So I think we do communicate really well together. But I mean, you can always improve, can't you?
Yeah. How do you go at voicing your needs?
I'm pretty good at that. I don't shy away from telling people exactly what I need. I'm naturally quite direct. I don't fluff. I just appreciate things being said as they are rather than warming things up too much.
That feels like love for me.
Yeah,
when someone's honest with me, I'm like, thank you for loving me enough to be honest.
Yes, I always think, because giving direct feedback's hard. You know, it's the other person often doesn't want to do that. They just want to look after you, and I feel the same. But not everyone receives it in the same way, which is the responsibility on the person obviously giving it. But Yeah, I'm pretty good at naming my needs. I've always been pretty good at naming my needs. I think that comes from like background with health and fitness and training. It's like I know what I need right now. I know what my body needs. I know what I need to feel supported. So that's not an issue for me. Luke needs to work on it, where he needs to name his needs and not absorb and take on everything and just soldier on. Whereas I'm pretty good at being like, this isn't working and I need something differently here.
Do you think being driven is good for a relationship, or do you think it makes it harder?
I think it makes it harder at times. I think that when you're fixated on something and I have at times very a mentality of like, it's one way, like it's one way or the highway. And I say I'm open to feedback at times, but there is definitely things where I'm like, I just don't think it can work any other way besides this, right? When you get very fixated on it. So I do think it makes it harder, but it depends on for the purpose. I'm only going to double down on something if I can see the long-term purpose. So often that means short-term discomfort to sort of get that. But I do think in relationships, it can create more tension at times for sure.
Let's move into, I guess, what we're noticing in the fitness industry or the health space lately. What is something that you've noticed in the industry that women think is healthy but is actually really unhealthy?
That's a good question. I mean, so much of the fitness industry, to be honest. I think a lot more people are like cluing on, but I still do think that a lot of people just chase aesthetics over everything. I mean, that's what the fitness industry really is built on. And I think you have to go through those experiences for yourself to learn the truth of like what it really does mean to be healthy and strong and fit, right? And you can have both. I think that a fit, strong body follows a healthy one always. But I do think that now, especially with skinny coming back in and the way that things are trending and just the state of the world and all the other things that are going on, I do think that I feel like we're slipping back a bit. I don't know if you've noticed that, but I feel like we went through this really strong era where women were pushing in the mold and stepping into the areas that they know they should be doing. Whereas I feel like now there's so much confusion, so much overwhelm. People are unsure and I feel like we're slipping back a little bit. And I mean, I've definitely been in the experience back many, many years ago where, and I know you've had experiences where like I was the lightest and the leanest I'd ever been. I was like 45 kilos and I was the most miserable I'd ever been and being like, I'm so unhappy.
Little
Yeah, little whippet. And I just think that I think we're slipping back into that whole aesthetics is everything. And yeah, it's a shame because it's obviously not what we know like a strong fit body is a healthy body first, and it takes longer than you could ever imagine possible to achieve it. It's not something you can do quickly. Yeah. What are you noticing?
Definitely a lot of noise. So I just signed up to Sheridan Sky's mentorship, and it's a lot about like what's happening in the women's space. And something she asked was like, what do you notice about, is it easier or harder to coach women these days? Like, what do we do with this information? And I just said, well, there's just so much noise.
It's harder, yeah.
And I think what is hard is that when we do see big social media Instagrams put out the wrong information. Yeah. And when there's people that are really charismatic or, they have a big social media following and they've got like their followers and they almost like don't want to hear anything else, even if what they think is right is incorrect. So I feel like it seems to be a lot of battles at the moment, like no one's really going, oh, that's interesting. Like, oh, you shared that. How can I learn a little bit more about that? I think it takes a lot of intelligence to be able to say, you think that way, I think this way. It's okay that we're different. But also, what's the right, like, how do we actually take great information and make it useful? And so there's just so much noise because people like to cherry pick towards, what's it called? Cognitive bias.
Yes.
Those types of things. And so I feel for women out there because we are in the industry and we still hear all of it. Yeah. We have the knowledge and yet there's so much misinformation out there. Of course, everyone else who has no knowledge is confused. And of course, the woman that's sharing it who looks amazing is saying this one thing and you think, well, she looks great. So that's where I think the Me Too movement can be not so useful when it's like, well, if this works for me, it should work for you. It's like, no, we can say, you look amazing. I'd love to be able to look like that. What does that look like for me? But I don't have to do what you're doing, especially when it's not useful information.
100%. A lot of people want to be right rather than get it right. And I think when you actually work with people, like when you work with women, like you learn a lot of these things. But what I find hard is when people put out all this information, they don't actually work with people to know, well, practicality, like this actually isn't supported first, but it also doesn't work in a coaching sense. I find that really hard in the fitness space because like, that sounds great on paper. It was like even I was listening to, I did a YouTube recently on the nutrition misinformation in the women's space and especially around like cycle syncing, seeding, nutrition around your menstrual cycle and all that sort of stuff. And I listened to it and I'm like, this is so overly complicated and there is nothing behind it that supports whether this is even meaningful. And I think that 5-10 years ago, when we were probably in our heavy competing seasons, if you wanted to get in shape, there was only a couple of ways you did it, right? You tracked your calories and you like strength trained in the gym and you progressively overload, right? That was the method. Whereas now I feel like because of the misinformation, people are like, I want to intuitively eat and I want to also add some Pilates in. I want to run on the weekend. They want the result their way. And they think that there's all these options. Now, of course, all movement's good movement. There's a million ways to skin a cat, like whatever works. But there is underlying principles that we need to adhere by. And what I notice from clients coming in is maybe they think they've tried those things and they have not worked, right? Or they've seen someone talk about how a calorie deficit doesn't work or that this type of body fat cells doesn't respond to this deficit or like they've heard all these things or their PCOS or their endo, like they've heard all this information and they think that there's a better way and they want to get the result that way. And that's where I see a lot of the confusion. I think it's the responsibility of coaches to break beliefs, educate, come back to what actually works and collectively actually stand on a pedestal together and say, no, none of this works. This is the principles. There's a million ways to apply these principles, but let's not murky the water. But it's never going to happen. And it's just what people do to sell something, right? But it's the world we live in, unfortunately. And I think a number of people have to make the same painful mistakes and stay stuck for so long to get to that point where they're like, I'm sick of my own shit and I'm sick of chasing these shiny things that clearly don't work. But it's a rat race, isn't it?
I think training and nutrition is very much an honesty policy. And until you're really honest, nothing's going to change. We hear it all the time. I've tried everything and nothing works. There's one variable in there, and that's you. And no one likes to hear that, right? Like no one likes to hear that it's my fault. And it's not to blame anything. It's more to like, how do I, if I really want to make a change, how do I change how I approach the process instead of feeling like the process is always failing me or I can't trust the process. Like we have to trust ourselves first. We have to trust the process. And the thing about strength training, which a lot of women are actually scared of because they think they're going to maybe look like me and that's not what they want. Yeah. They're going to look like this bodybuilder. It's like nothing does to our body what strength training does. No pill, not even protein powder, like not even protein. And so you don't have to look jacked to be strong. But you do need a weight train. You do need to bear that weight on your bone if you want to increase bone density. You do, if you want longevity, if you want to feel good as you're older, if you want to age slowly or slower, resistance training is what you need to do. And you don't need to do it 5 days a week. You can do it twice a week. Like we actually look at minimum effective dose. Something we teach our clients is how do we get the most out of the least, not how do we do as much as possible. We're trying to get you, you're not being lazy, you're just being more effective and strategic. So if anyone's listening to this podcast and going like, well, I don't want to look like that person or that person, you're probably not.
Yeah, you never will.
But you still need a weight train because it's what it does to the bone and the tendons and the ligaments and our muscle mass that preserves it, at least preserves it as we get older.
Yeah. How do you approach that for clients that maybe have resistance around that, right? Like I said, like they hear it all, they know it's true, but then when it comes to the honesty policy or leaning in, trusting the process, showing up, communicating, failing forward, like when that's resistant and I guess maybe the will isn't there, like how do you naturally approach that from a coaching lens?
I love like compare and contrasting with clients, which is right now you feel like you're putting in a lot of effort and that's true, you are. But you're still doing 3/4 of the work and that last 15% is the reason you're still here. So this is why you feel like you're doing everything and not getting a result. What if we went all in? Like what if we actually just went to 100? What if we listened completely to what I said? What if we do this thing like this? Let's just do it for 2 weeks. If you get a result, let's just see. And 100% of the time it's like, oh, I don't need to eat less. No, you don't. You know, you don't need to do more running. No, you don't. You don't need to do more steps. It's cleaning up how intentional you are within the process, particularly around sleep and nutrition. We get a lot of clients that come to us and they want to do, but I still want to run and I still want to do this. And we just had our reset challenge, and on the first call that I had with the girls, they're like, I'm going to do the 5-day split and then I'm going to do my running and I'm going to do this. And I just got on the call and I said, I just want you to trust me. For 8 weeks, you can do whatever you want outside of these 8 weeks, but please trust me. Let me show you what you can achieve without having to just do noise. Because it's like it's all these shiny things and we've got the internet and this girl over here looks amazing doing Pilates and they're sweating in the hot room, and it's like sweat doesn't mean anything. Like you're just hot. And so you can still do your Pilates, but it shouldn't be the base of what it is. It's like, can you get 2 full body strength training sessions a week which are hard, got some hard reps in there, and then do a run once or twice a week, and then do a Pilates. But it's like everyone likes to train. We all love training, but we all love results even more. And so that's the part I'm like, I know you love training, but you love results, which is why you're here. You feel frustrated because you're doing so much training and nothing is changing. So you can't expect to get a new result doing the same thing.
Yep.
And but a big part of that is trust. It's trusting the coach, trusting the space, trusting themselves. And that I think is the hardest part, because they haven't built enough evidence about themselves that they can be trusted. So I think that's the coaching part there.
Yeah, that's a really good frame. I had a client in one of the coaching calls the other night say she was talking about she's nearly reached her target for her fat loss phase and she's got the last couple of weeks to go, and her reflection was around like, I need to give 100%. Like I've been giving 95 and the last couple of weeks I just haven't seen the results. And one of the coaches was saying to her, or her coach was saying to her, like, what worked at the start, like you could get away with that. You can't anymore. Like you need to give 100% if you want to finish this off. 95 is not enough. Like I know the world tells you, but at your stage when you've been training for this long and you've achieved this amount of weight loss over the years and you're at this layer at the end of a deficit, like 95 is not enough. And so she was like, so I just tighten the reins, accuracy within 50 to 100 calories every day, and I reached it, and I was like, I love that she shared that, because like I said, so often we do think like 3/4 of the way is enough, and it's not. The longer you train and the further you get along, you start to learn like the details matter, the effort matters, the intentionality matters, and how much I feel like I'm doing is not going to yield the results. So I love that you shared that, because a lot of when you take the right advice for the wrong person, like if you take beginner advice and you don't associate, like it's not going to essentially work.
We both do group coaching calls, right, in our businesses. And something I'll say is, all right, everyone, this part of coaching that I'm going to give to Gabby right now is for Gabby. So don't take this part on board. Like, this is why I'm giving it to her. This is why I'm giving this to her. And like, because what can happen is, and this is the internet, it's missing so much context. So we hear something and we go, oh, that must be being. It's like, no, you're doing great, sweetie. But this person needs to do this thing. So that's the tough thing about group coaching calls. But the beautiful thing about group coaching calls is they get to hear. They get to listen. They get to learn. They get to understand. They get to see someone else's experience, and they get to see how someone else gets to learn from that experience. So I think that's a really powerful thing, because, as you said, it's like what works in the beginning, it dwindles down. And we often say like 80%, like most people are going to get a result with 80%. They're pretty compliant, but that's in the beginning. And it all depends on like, are you trying to be average? Are you trying to be good? Or do you want excellence? Because if you're putting an average effort to the process, you're not getting excellence. If you want excellence or true self-mastery, you want to be a great athlete, then you have to be willing to do more than just ticking off the box. You have to be willing to be really intentional. And that's where we talk about standards. Like there's always a time for a minimum standard when life's chaotic. But where we can and we want to, like, can we practice having a really high standard and go, holy shit, I am so capable.
Yep.
I'm actually like, that was a big day. Oh, that pulled out of me, but damn, like I am resilient, resourceful, and I'm so capable. Tomorrow might look a little bit different, but I also know what I've got access to when I prioritize something.
Yeah, 100%. I think a lot of people are so used to and conditioned to pulling back when things feel hard or when life's busy or stressful, and it robs you of the opportunity to build confidence and belief in yourself. Like when things are going hard, it's actually when those standards matter the most, right? And lowering the bar, like you said, yes, it has its place, but I just think that so often we lower it too soon because we're taught fill your own cup, rest, pull back, self-care. And it's like, no, self-care is having standards, and it's actually proving to yourself that you can do hard things whether you feel like it or not. And I feel like competing, like even for me, nursing, like it teaches you that. It's like whether you feel like it or not, like you can still do the thing. Just because you don't feel like it doesn't mean that you can't do the thing or the thing doesn't serve you or you need to change the thing. And obviously there's so much case scenarios that can come into that. But I do think there is so much power in like just because you're busy, just because you're stressed, just because you're overwhelmed, sometimes the best thing you can do is like get your sessions in, track your food, show up, go to bed on time, tighten the boundaries and have more precision rather than being like, I'm going to have more flexibility. Like it's the last thing you actually need in those periods. More often than not, it's like, no, just hold the standard for you. And even for coaches listening to this, like do it for your clients. Like when things are hard and maybe the compliance isn't there, like don't just change things or lower the bar to make it easier because it rarely ever works when you do that.
I think we don't give people the opportunity to step into something and see actually what they're capable of in that moment. And, sometimes we often say like, do the best that you can. But that really means doing the best that you can. Not the best that I can was that. Like that's below average. Like that's below the standard. If we're going to be honest with ourselves and we're going to practice like hold the standard of what it is that day, then let's do the best that we can with that standard. So I think it's it's that honesty policy thing, and I think that's a really beautiful thing about the relationship that we have with ourselves is when we look in the mirror, do we want to look at someone that we're really proud of and say, this is hard, but I'm doing the thing. This is hard, but I am reliable. This is hard, but when my daughter looks at me doing all these things, she's going to say, I can do that too. And I think that's circling it back to leadership, and the beautiful thing about mums is like you're in this wonderful but also very hard decision, a hard place where it's like you're leading yourself not just to lead yourself, you're leading yourself to lead the people around you.
Yeah. I actually think that is a great tool though. Like a lot of people that are very like selfless struggle to prioritize themselves. So I'm like, don't make this about you. Your goals aren't just about you. You're being a role model for your daughter. Like I know that can be firm for people at times where it's like, oh, I don't want to let other people down. But I do think if you struggle with like prioritizing yourself and you are that person, because I see that a lot with mums. And I'm like, this actually isn't even about you anymore. Like think about how this impacts others by you feeling this way or doing these things or deprioritizing yourself. Like what do you think you're teaching the people around you? Like I actually think that's really, really powerful because it's so much easier for us to show up for others and give to others and care for others than go, oh, I want to achieve X, Y, and Z. Like it doesn't feel as meaningful. So I actually think like pass the responsibility back to yourself because of others, and it can actually make it more motivating or easier to show up without feeling like it all the time.
I agree. What's one of your non-negotiables? What are your non-negotiables if you have a few?
They do change a little bit, to be honest, depending on
Are you being too flexible?
Am I being too flexible? Too adaptable? They do change a little bit, but I would say obviously my own health and fitness and well-being is like a top priority. So whatever that looks like in that season for me, like my trainings are non-negotiable. Like it gets done. Do you know what I mean? It's never a choice in my brain anymore. Whereas I know for some people, and I haven't been like that in a long time because it's so deeply conditioned in me, it's like I just do these things. It's just part of how I live and who I am. And I notice myself, if I ever compromise with that, I'll move this, I'll do it later, I'll shift that around. I notice the part of me that compromises and just thinks I'll just move things. So for me, it's not compromising. Like that's the standard I have. It's like if I set my week up and I plan my week out, and I'm so big on planning and organizing, like by every Sunday I sit down and I put my training in my calendar. Like I know when I'm going to the supermarket, I planned out my week. I've got all the meetings on the calendar. I've filled things up as much as I can and I've left buffer. That gets done unless things are happening. And I have a personal calendar and a professional one, and they both are on there, right? It's not just work and it's not just play. It's like, how do they all come together? So I'm very big on time blocking, sticking to the small things that I've committed to. Things are an appointment. Like everyone knows that it's important to look after our well-being, and we reflect this to the team. Like, if you are busy, like, you get up early for your training. Like, it still happens. You just fit it around your schedule. So I think the flexibility for me is like being adaptable in when things happen, but they still get done. Yep. Right, on those busy weeks. So obviously training's a really big one. Food's a big one for me. Like, I've definitely gone through seasons where I haven't maybe prioritized nutrition as much, and now I'm the person that would forget to eat. I never was that person in the past. Never that person. Whereas now, when I'm so driven and busy and fixated in what I do, I could literally go 6 hours and just forget to eat, or 8 hours.
Goodness.
I know. So, then I'm
you
like,
need a coach.
Back to the calendar, put the things in, schedule your lunch breaks. It always comes down to preparation, organization, planning, and making sure that you're prioritizing your own needs within everyone else and everything else. So, yeah, for me, it always just comes back to like sticking to the bloody plan. That's always what it is. And if the plan needs to move, fine, for sure, but it should feel hard moving the plan. Like, it shouldn't feel like, oh, I'll just move that to tomorrow. Like, it needs to be like life or death, move the plan.
What are you currently working on for yourself?
For myself. Honestly, this season for me at the moment just looks like fitting it all in together. Like, how do I maintain and hold the routines and the habits and the processes that I've got whilst also demanding more from other areas of my life, relationship, work, business, growing in that way. And for me, like, I've always been very big on sleep. That's such a big anchor for me. And I think it's the night shift person in me that's had to know what it's like to perform without it. It's so hard. So for me, it's actually just like maintaining. We don't always have to be in push seasons and like trying to, always just lift the bar for ourselves. Sometimes it's just about holding the bar and being like, this is my lifestyle, this is how I live. I can have little micro achievements and micro goals, but it's from a fitness perspective and a health side, it's actually more just about how do I feel my best? Like, how do I look after my body so I can show up in other areas, like with energy and with strength, and actually enjoy the energy in the body and the routines that I do have, whilst also giving energy to other areas. So for me, it's like how it all works together, because for a long time, I've always been able to prioritize. I've always been able to go, okay, yeah, I work shift work as a nurse and I do the things over here. My competing is like the thing that gets a lot of it, right? Or vice versa. But for this season, it's like I don't get to pick. How do I sort of mesh it all together? And I have gone back to like, what's the minimum effective dose? How do I need to dial in my training to make sure that I'm, if I need to have a 3-session week, like what does that look like? Where's the intensity need to be? What do I need to prioritize outside of the gym? How do I need to fit in my movement around all my meetings to make sure I'm still hitting those targets and staying active? Because that's a big thing when you're so sedentary. So for me, it's just about molding and adapting what I'm doing without sort of like lowering the standard of like what allows me to feel my best, essentially.
Everything's very intentional still.
Yeah. And intentionality. I mean, I could never go to the gym without a plan. You have to convince me to do something. It's why I actually really struggle to stick to supplements, because I can't see them working. If I'm like, do I need a blood panel here to show me?
Can you tell me every day what's happening?
Yeah, 100%. Whereas when I'm building programs or when I'm putting things together, like everything needs to have intentionality behind it for myself too. Otherwise I won't stick to it, to be honest. Like if something doesn't feel like it's purposeful, I will not have any buy-in to do it. I think that's a natural human behavior. So even with nutrition or, like I said, sleep hygiene or wind down stuff or self-care, like everything needs to have like a physiological or a mental purpose for my brain to go, that's worth my time.
You don't track your nutrition anymore, do you? You don't do macro tracking, do you?
I do it on and off. Like I mean, I've been like you. I've been tracking for 10 years or whatever. You never stop tracking, do you? You look at a plate and you know what it is. But not at this stage. Like I was at the start of the year, and then I'm in more of a maintenance phase at the moment, just focusing on other things. But I'm not as rigid with my tracking, like my calorie tracking at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, to get to where you are is where most people want to be. You know, that intuitive eating. Eating, which you have to learn how to do from years of tracking properly and just understanding and knowing about your food. Obviously, you're a coach, so you know quite a bit about nutrition. And then, I guess one of my questions that comes to my mind as I share that with you is, you used to do marathons, you used to be 45 kilos, you used to be smallest version of you, then you did competing, and now you're so content with how you are, and you're an athlete still in many ways. What do you notice about kind of like how you embody your body now versus what it used to be like when you were trying to be really small?
I think over the years I've learned to appreciate my body, really appreciate it. I think the first taste, to be honest, of learning to appreciate my body was when I became like a midwife, and I was like, holy hell, the female body is insane, right? And I think that like really like appreciating what your body does for you is a skill that no one can just tell you. You have to learn it through lived experience and seeing what my body is capable of, whether it's like running a marathon or winning a show or getting through 2 shifts without sleeping in between, like whatever it can be. I just think that I've learned that my body can do so much more than what I thought ever possible. And I think as women, we're so conditioned to care so much about what our body looks like, which is still important to me. Like there's aesthetic goals are still important. You know, you can have it all. You absolutely can, but it shouldn't be the driver of everything. You know, it's the outcome. It's what happens from the process. So I think over the years, I've probably just really learnt to appreciate the performance side of things, like what my body does for me. Like I get fit to live a fit life. I don't want to just look great and then not be able to do anything, right?
Not feel good at all.
Yeah. And for me, like I really love movement, the same as you. Like I love what my body allows me to do, and I will never ever take that for granted. Like I think the nurse midwifery side of me is seen too much to be like, never take your body for granted. Like it's not guaranteed, and often the parts that we criticize of ourselves, like people would kill for, you know. And I just think I've seen too much to ever speak to my body in a way that would put it in a box to feel shame around it, because our body is whatever we want it to be. You know, I have control over so much. So I think there's always parts in females' brains that like, I want to be lean, I want to be strong, I want to look a different way. It's normal to have those, but it doesn't mean that we need to criticize, or it doesn't like mean that we need to punish in order to get there.
Yeah, you can't punish yourself to a body that you're going to love. That's one of my favorite things. And I think we're allowed to love ourselves while we work on ourselves. We're allowed to love ourselves while being frustrated with parts of us that we're still learning about, or wanting to shift or evolve, or, you know, even like trying to learn how do we remove certain stories about ourselves that we've maybe carried for a long time, which could have been from, you know, exposure of other people, but even like, you know, just what we cultivate ourselves. And I love that you're in a place where there is this immense appreciation for your body. I think this vessel that we do life in is pretty damn amazing. And at the end of the day, it looks a certain way because of how we treat it. So if we improve the way we treat it, aka what we do, how we train, sleep, nurture, nutrition, all those things, with consistency over time, we can start to shift it and shape it. But also, like, how do we start to love and embody our bodies when it's not just under certain conditions? Like, can we learn to love ourselves unconditionally? But that's not to then go, I'm only going to hold it in this condition, if that makes sense. It's like, can we keep working on ourselves even when we don't see what we want to see, knowing that if we keep repeating the thing, eventually over time we'll start to see the picture that we're trying to create.
Yeah, 100%. I think even when I was competing, like once you get lean, it's hard to almost like see yourself in different lights.
You don't see yourself as you are.
But one thing, like self-talk is so important. But I used to, when I was going through seasons where they were genuine push seasons, I knew it was like my best, you know, not my normal. I would always say to myself, like, this is not normal. Like, don't expect this is normal. Don't get fixated. Don't like idolize yourself in the mirror. Do you know what I mean? Like, don't fixate on what you can see. It's not normal, right? And trying to normalize in my brain, because I know what I got to go back to, right? And that's normal, because you see people that go through those seasons and they get back to an amazing body, a physique that's normal, that's healthy, that's reproductive, that's doing all the things, and they feel fat or whatever.
Not good enough.
Yeah, it's not good enough. And I'm always mindful of like, imagine if because I've seen this from people that I've looked up to where they would criticize their physique on the outside and I think they're incredible. And I'm always mindful of like voicing that to the world, to be like, well, I could be someone's body goals right now, and I don't want to put out in the world that like this is not good enough. Like what example is that setting for others as well? So I'm really big on like self-talk, and even if I'm having like a bad body image day, I don't voice it to myself. I don't allow that to be real life. I know the whole name it to tame it is powerful for some people, but for me it's like, no, that's not real.
Name it, tame it, reframe it.
That's it. Reframe it, but try to not always bring it into the conscious mind of being like, this is how I am right now. It's like, no, that's just, you can still move on. Like, don't take everything that you think as matter of fact or something that you need to like microanalyze or look at. It's like you can't just move on, and that might go tomorrow when you get some sunshine.
And sleep.
And sleep. And food.
Sharelle, I could talk to you forever, but we might wrap it up here. Where can people find you if they want more of you?
Yeah, okay. Well, anywhere, to be honest. I'm pretty much on everything. If you're a podcast enjoyer, we also do have a podcast, Level Up with Sharelle and Danny. So we post every week over there if you're a podcast listener. I'm also on YouTube. So you can just type in Sharelle Grant on YouTube or Instagram or any other platform pretty much, and you can find me over there.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Guys, I hope you absolutely love this conversation like I did. If you did, please share it, like it. And remember, everyone, we have two hands, one for helping ourselves, one for helping others.